Okay, today we're going to talk about interest rates. And also, we're going to give another homework assignment plus some more extra credit. And this is stuff that's pretty easy and interesting. Okay, so for our homework, let's say this is due next. Let's give you a little over a week. Let's do next Thursday. Okay. Now, we have a number. First, we'll talk about the required problems. Okay. We'll have one. The first one is, what is the current value of the yield the yield is really on a fixed income security. It's really like the interest rate on a 1-year Treasury bill. Plus the price of a $1,000 T-bill. Okay. So we want both the yield and the price. Now, we know that in Treasury bills, they are what we call zero coupon bonds. They are fixed income, but they are zero coupon. So typically, you buy it, $1,000 bond, for less than $1,000. But you get $1,000 after 1 year. But you don't get any other interest payments on it. And let's put asterisks on these two guys, and I'll explain that in a sec. Okay. And we'll also say that 2, what are the yields? And coupon rates. We'll talk about coupon rates in a second today for a 10-year T-note and 30-year T-bond. T-note. T, of course, is the U.S. Treasury, and 30-year T-bond. We'll see in a sec that the difference between a T-bill, a T-note, and a T-bond is the time to maturity. And then let's put asterisk here. Two. What do we have here? 3. What is the current value? A of the federal funds target rate. B, we have the prime rate of course, these are all interest rates. C, we'll talk about the discount rate. Rate. Okay. And D, the 3-month dollar LIBOR rate. Okay, so we have those, and let's put an asterisk after all these guys, and we'll see what we're going to do for that asterisk. Okay, now extra credit, optional extra credit. Did we say this was required? Yep. Good. And some of the people that didn't do as well on the test you should really try hard on this homework and try to do the extra credit. This extra credit is really easy. And here we say plot the 1 federal funds target rate rate. Two, the prime rate, and 3, the LIBOR rate. And let's make that the 3-month dollar LIBOR rate. Because the LIBOR rate is stated in different currencies, even though it says the London Interbank offered rates. Okay. Now, this is 1. So we have some more extra credit. This is pretty easy. And I think if he hasn't already done so, I'll ask Shauna to put up a abbreviated list of different websites that you can get information from. And we're looking at EC continued. And we have the following. 4, describe quantitative easing. Okay. The Fed has been doing quantitative easing, and I think they said they were going to taper it off. And today, Bernanke was testifying for the House, but I was in a PhD final exam, so I didn't see that. Yesterday, the markets were down a bit, but we'll see what happens after the reaction to Bernanke. Okay. Then 5 will be what is the relationship between a bond's price and its yield. And we'll say explain. This is fundamental. Why do we just tell you that the relationship is that if the bond price goes up, the yield goes down, and vice versa. If the yield goes up, the price goes down. And you should explain why. Okay. Now, for our asterisk, we'll say cite your source. It could be sources and append a printout if from the web. All this information is readily available on the web. Okay. Now, let's talk about project presentations. Okay. On the project presentations, what do we want? We're going to say that any team or person, if you have a one-person team who does a presentation tomorrow or Friday or next week will get points added to their project. Great. Now, and we know that the project grade is worth 1/3 of the total grade. So if people didn't do so well on a test, don't despair. You remember you have your homework, which if you're conscientious, you can get close to 100% on, and you still have your project here. Now, we're going to go over interest rates today. We have one presentation scheduled for tomorrow. But we have room to do 2 or 3 more tomorrow, and 3 to 4 on Friday, and then there's all next week. So anybody who wants to present early is going to get extra points added to their project grade. So if, in fact, you didn't do that well on the test, I would encourage you to do that. Now, we have one presentation scheduled for tomorrow. If we do not get any presentation scheduled for Friday, then we will skip Friday's session. In fact, if we skip Friday's session, we'll give you like a 3-day weekend to work on a presentation for next week and get some extra points on it. So we're hoping that people will take advantage of this one-time offer here. Now, let's look at interest rates. We saw how interest rates are determined in the market, but a lot of interest rates are not determined by the market. We have a handout on this, and we'll talk about it. Now, there's the Treasury bill rate. Now, a T-bill is a short-term bond. Which is 1 year or less. And we'll call it a zero coupon, and I'll talk about that in a second, bond issued by our government to raise money. So you can think of this, these T-bills as loans. And there's been a lot of hay made up about that the Chinese own a bunch of these T-bills. That doesn't do much. That doesn't hurt us. When we say zero coupon, what do we mean? Bonds have coupon payments. Typically, every 6 months. So you have a bond, you have coupon payment every 6 months, and the rate is stated on the bond. So you may have a 6% coupon rate, 3% coupon rate. The reason they're called coupon payments is that in the old days, when this first came out, on a bond you actually had, with perforated paper, you had coupons that you had to rip off and then mail in to get your money. Now, of course, there are no coupons, you just get your money here. Now, T notes and T bonds. T, of course, is Treasury. That's U.S. Treasury. Now the difference between all these three things, the T-bill, the T-note, and the T-bond, is on their duration. Okay. T-notes are up to 10 years. T-bonds are typically 10 to 30 years in duration. Okay. And both are issued in denominations of $1,000. The smallest you can buy is 1,000. Now, when you look in the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times or Barron's, you'll see that it looks like they're listed, their prices in the $100. But they're just dropping off 10 to make things easier. Another thing you might see, and in fact you will see, is so-called, sometimes things are quoted in basis points. And here, what they mean is that 100 basis points equals 1%. So a basis point is 0.01% here. Okay. Now, let's look at the federal funds target rate. And the federal funds target rate is that all Federal Reserve banks have to maintain a balance in their accounts. Now, a lot of times, the bigger New York banks typically go under this reserve margin. And when they go under, they have to borrow money overnight from another Federal Reserve bank. And they borrow that money, so this is for overnight loans. To Federal, what do we say, to Federal Reserve banks in the Federal Reserve banking system. Okay. Now, the target rate is the rate that's posted by the Federal Reserve. It's the rate that Ben Bernanke talks about. Now, the actual rate actually varies a bit around that target rate. So you'll see it vary from day to day. Okay. Now, let's look at some other rates that you probably heard about. The prime rate okay. This is the rate that at least 75% of the nation's 30 largest banks post as a reference rate, interest rate, okay, to its biggest corporate clients. In other words, the blue chip clients here. Interestingly enough, 75% of the U.S. of the 30 largest bank is what? Is 94, so it doesn't come out to be an integer here. Okay. Now, there's also the discount rate. And this is the rate that the Federal Reserve loans short-term to commercial banks. And financial institutions. This is important. Now, why is this important? Because in the March of 2008, the Fed opened the so-called discount window to help Morgan Chase take over the ailing Bear Stearns. Okay, so they actually used that in a sense, they bailed out Bear Stearns, but Bear Stearns was folded into J.P. Morgan. And in fact, now of the investment banks, the big two that are still standing are the J.P. Morgan Chase and Goldman Sachs. All the rest of the guys have fallen by the wayside, largely. Okay, now let's talk about another very interesting rate. And this is this LIBOR rate. Was this posted, the handout was posted on Blackboard?
The interest rate or the LIBOR?
Oh, not the LIBOR thing, just the... Did you update some of those?
Yeah, I found some graphs.
Oh, great. Hey, thanks a lot. Okay. Now, let's talk about this LIBOR rate. And I think we had the one person who doesn't have a topic, a very good topic would be to talk about the LIBOR rate in the recent LIBOR scandal here, which is a little confusing to the lay person. But let's talk about this LIBOR rate. And there's a typo in the handout. The LIBOR rate stands for the London Interbank so here's a capital B there, offered, and here's where the typo is. I think in the handout we say offer. It's the offered, it's not much of a typo, rate. Let's put an O here. Okay. Okay. Now what is that? This is a rate at which the large banks can loan money at. Now, it's posted around 11:30 London time. But uses input from worldwide banks. And in fact, this is the LIBOR rate is very interesting. Let's look at something. The LIBOR rate is stated daily. It's stated daily. There are 150 LIBOR rates. These are for different lengths of time, published every day. And they cover 10 currencies, so they're not just in British pounds, and 15 maturities. Okay. So, in fact, there are a lot of U.S. banks do that. Here are involved, like Citigroup, J.P. Morgan Chase, Bank of America. Then there's also British banks, Barclays, which had a scandal about trying to affect the LIBOR rate. Now, in the LIBOR rate, they typically have about, for the U.S., I think they have 18 banks submit the rate to a British banking commission. Then the commission throws out the top 25% and the bottom 25%, and then average the rest. And that will become the LIBOR rate. Now, this LIBOR rate is really important because there are trillions of dollars are related to the LIBOR rate. In fact, U.S. Mortgage rates, student loan rates, credit card rates, all kinds of rates are tied to the LIBOR rate. Typically, there are percentages above the LIBOR rate. The LIBOR rate, you'll see, is low. And so, don't just think of this as something in London. This is worldwide. This is perhaps the most important metric in that here. Okay. Now, there are a bunch of other interest rates. You have the interest rate on corporate bonds. The interest rate on corporate bonds doesn't change like the interest rate on T-bonds or the prime rate. Now, the prime rate, you'll see the prime rate is a step function. We should say that. It doesn't. This is a step function. Over time. Because it's related to the federal funds target rate. So it only goes up or down when the federal funds target rate goes up or down. Then it jumps up or down. So you look at it and you'll see that if you look at a graph of it, it's a step function. Whereas a commercial bond rate will be more of a continuous function. They will change almost every day. And you can look up these on the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times. Typically, the New York Times publishes this every other day. But they also publish all the money rates, if you look. So that's something to look at. Okay. Do we get any more people so far?
No, just that one team.
And that one team will present tomorrow?
We can do it tomorrow.
Okay, let's do it tomorrow. Again, if anybody wants to present tomorrow or Friday, please get in touch with Shaunak right away with your presentation. If we have nobody else presenting on Friday, we'll cancel Friday's class. Also, anybody who wants to present next week will also get points added to their project score. And if you have a number of team members, those points will be added to every team member's score. So this is a nice way, this is a gift, especially for those people who didn't do as well as they liked on the test. So try to take advantage of this. Also take advantage of the homework and extra credit that we gave. Okay. Okay, thank you very much. We'll see you tomorrow. We'll see how our first presentation goes. Maybe we'll even have some more. Thank you.